Hey, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Agency Freedom Podcast. We help you discover and achieve freedom in every aspect of your business. One of the most important advantages we have at Riskwell is our ability to be agile and to innovate ahead of the curve of most of our peer group in the industry. I would say probably better than almost every agency like ours. We have almost an obsessive comfort with innovation, with breaking things and rebuilding them. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how to get ready for innovation because I want to share with you kind of our process for staying at the bleeding edge of what is best for our clients and getting in front of the bulk of our competition, keeping the advantage over the folks that we are competing with in the marketplace. And it is a very important thing to think about getting ready for innovation because the worst thing you could possibly do is think to yourself, we need to innovate, and then just come into the office one day and decide, all right, we're going to start innovating. And if you're a solo operator, you might be able to get away with it for a little while before things just start to break and you realize that you made a mistake. But if you have even one person on your team, the process of innovation, of adaptation, of experimentation, of figuring out how do we make this better, that is an acquired skill, and that is something that we're going to talk about here today. And I'm going to do my very best to help you build a framework around the whole process of innovation. It's going to start with getting ready to innovate. And then, how in the world do you actually innovate in your office? How do you create new processes, new systems, new workflows, new ideas? How do you unpack a problem? Whether it is in your sales function or your marketing function, your ops function or your back office function. There's only four buckets of functions, folks, in the entirety of our agencies. There's only four buckets: sales, marketing, ops, and back office. Somewhere in the back office ecosystem is that nebulous, intangible thing called culture. That is in the back office bucket. But those four buckets in this conversation, and really in the entire framework that I approach the conversation of doing the insurance agency thing, it's not any different than really any other business that I'm aware of. Any industry's business, any entrepreneur in any industry is probably going to tell you that those four buckets: sales, marketing, ops, and back office, is almost comprehensive in just about any industry. So, how in the world do we get ready for innovation? A little bit of story time here. So, the whole process of innovation begins with discovering that something is wrong. And on the list of things that we have done wrong at Riskwell in the last 5.5 years, man, there's a lot. Lessons learned mostly from me being a bulldozer more often than I should be, of conversations where I run with hair on fire into the problem and figure out what it is, whether it's a carrier that doesn't have what we need them to have, we don't have the right carrier for the appetite, or a piece of technology isn't working correctly and I come in guns blazing and piss off the service team and the developers and whatnot. There's so many things that I've done wrong over the years, attempting to innovate, attempting to solve a problem and create improvement. Really, the key point here, when you want to innovate, the first thing you have to figure out is, how is everything going in my office? What is going on that needs innovation? What is happening great? What does not need to be improved? Because one of my biggest rules is, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Now, part of our SWOT analysis that we do every 6 months or so, we do it in November, December, leading up to the new year, and we do it in June as a mid-year review, just seeing, okay, we're almost to July 1, halfway through the year. How are things going? One of the things we always do at Riskwell is rally the wagons and figure out in those 4 buckets we talked about a little bit ago: sales, marketing, ops, back office. What is happening in those 4 operations in those 4 buckets, I shouldn't say, because ops and operations, that's just confusing. In those 4 buckets, what is happening? Are things happening the way that they're supposed to? Is our revenue on track? Do we have a marketing pipeline that is working the way that it's supposed to? Do we have meetings with channel partners at the frequency that we want to? Do we have enough referrals coming in? Do we have enough inbound leads coming in to the pipeline so that our sales team can do what they do? Do we have enough appointments out in the community? Are we getting enough traction with our brand recognition, with our community engagement? Is our operation happening like it's supposed to? Are we efficient with the work that we do with our clients? Are we able to effectively move someone through the processes of the sales pipeline and successfully onboard them and get everything set up and make sure that the checklists are done for new client onboarding, for renewals, for service, for claims? New client onboarding, renewals, service, claims. Those are, excuse me, those are the 4 things we always look at from ops, those buckets. Obviously, technology is outside of the core process I just mentioned. But technology is kind of an island of sorts. You fix it when it needs fixing, but other than that, you don't really visit Technology Island other than once or twice a year. Otherwise, you fall victim to shiny stuff syndrome, and we all know what happens when you fall victim to shiny stuff syndrome. So, the difference between pain points and bottlenecks is really important, because a bottleneck is an opportunity to innovate. Because when you find something that's not working the way that it should work, when you identify, hey, you know what, we had this idea for this process, but the process breaks down at this point, whatever this point is for you. For sales, maybe it's we can get people in the top of the pipeline. We have lots of leads coming in, but we don't have enough leads transitioning to suspect in our pipeline. We have lead, suspect, prospect, and then closed won, closed lost. Now, those are the deal stages that we have in our sales pipeline. And if things are getting stuck somewhere, then we can figure out where the opportunity for innovation is, where we need to apply more creative thinking, where we need to perhaps look at a technology solution to help us through a bottleneck. But a pain point may simply be the existing process isn't working the way that it's supposed to. So let's triage the existing process. It's when we find a bottleneck, when things are happening like we thought they were supposed to, but we have identified a stick in the process, a holdup in the process. That is where innovation happens, where we're doing things the right way. We're just not getting the results that we need. So maybe it's time to add a carrier partner. Maybe it's time to look at another vendor. Maybe it's time to hire new staff or retrain existing staff. Maybe it's time to go back to core processes and better document them using a tool like tango.us or something in the Microsoft ecosystem or Google if that's your thing. Whether it is having a project management board like Trello or Monday.com to help you better identify where things tend to break down. And if there's a process that needs innovation, well, then you can identify it. Otherwise, the innovation engine runs amok, and then shiny stuff syndrome sets in, and then you got a real problem. The roadmap for innovation is really important. When you can have a roadmap with leadership team, if you have them, with your whole team, if you're a small team, or if you're a solo operator, then take yourself out to a dinner date or coffee or whatever and figure out what your innovation roadmap needs. And this is where it's super interesting for me. I love this stuff. November, December is my favorite time of the entire year because it's when we get to reflect on what we've done this year, what we get to do next year, and where we get to have some fun. Because the whole process of, and I probably need some confession music here. I have a confession. I absolutely love the planning process. I think it is so much fun to break apart a system and figure out, can we do this better? It's probably one of my favorite questions, I have to confess. Can we do this better? And if we can, how can we do this better? I'm almost obsessed with that conversation, that talking point, I should say. Can we do this better? No matter how good it is, can we do this better? Thank you for listening to my confession. So, in the whole conversation of innovation, having a roadmap where we recognize this is what we're doing right now, but 6 months from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months, a year from now, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, these are the issues we anticipate encountering in the future. And having a roadmap for those innovation needs ahead of time, it almost creates internal accountability where you know you're going to have to deal with something later. You've put a pin in it, you've identified it as a later problem. But as my team likes to say, that's a problem for future James. Today, James, this month, James, doesn't have to deal with that yet. And if I'm being disciplined, I'm not going to try to deal with it because I'm going to recognize the innovation need doesn't exist for that thing yet. And the last point I want to make here in this episode is the whole idea of evaluating and embracing technology from the lens of process and system and workflow. Let me say it in the correct order: system and process and workflow. And asking ourselves before we ever take a demo, before we ever talk to anybody about maybe adding a new shiny toy, a new widget to our process, a new hire to join the team, asking ourselves, what is broken that we are trying to fix? What is not working to the efficiency, the efficacy that we want it to, that needs to work that way? What are we doing and what should we be doing? And if you don't have those things set up ahead of time, then you're going to fall victim to fake urgency in the innovation game. Things are going to seem worse than they actually are. And you're going to buy subscriptions and buy tech and buy shiny toys that you don't actually need. So when you're trying to get ready for innovation, when you're trying to capture opportunity that's in front of you, it is so important to pause and reflect. What are we doing great right now? What are we not doing great right now? What needs to get done better? And then, of course, asking ourselves, is this something that we can automate with existing technology? Can we delegate this to remote talent or a team member? Or should the principal, should the agency owner be doing it themselves? Because the simple fact is, if you attempt to bring in innovation to a conversation before you're ready, you're inviting disaster and a whole lot of wasted money into your office. So, a lot of folks uh, have conversations with me. I get messages on Facebook and emails occasionally asking, how in the world do you do what you do at Risk? Well, it doesn't make sense. Like, how do you guys keep up with everything? And the answer for me, first off, is I have an amazing team who handles things that I don't have bandwidth for. And everybody on the team is very good at what they do, and they have a very clearly defined job description. But we have internal accountability set up, and we constantly ask ourselves, obsessively almost, how can we make this better? And the things that are working great don't get that much attention. It's the things that aren't working great that we identify as targets for innovation, whether that is a vendor or that is improving an SPW, a system, process, or workflow. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you, deployed innovation that went poorly? Have you identified an area that you need to innovate in? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Drop me a line at podcast@jamesjenkins.com or just visit us in the Agency Freedom Facebook group and share your thoughts there. And that is it for this episode. Make it a great day, ladies and gentlemen. We'll talk to you again real soon. Y'all take care.